Yeah.
I think we're dead. Not me, this.
Oh.
I'm okay, not dead. Don't panic. Yeah. You know, the testimonies, my wife and I have done some of these presentations for the last few years, and one of the most powerful parts of these programs are the testimonies. They really kind of bring it down to earth, don't they? Aren't they really meaningful, right? And you can see, even from the testimonies that we heard today, every person, every process, every family is unique. So each situation is a little bit different from every other. So, you know, there were a couple of things that I wanted to mention too. Just before we get into the forum, I made some notes. I learn a lot when we do these things. I learn a lot from you guys. So, a short time ago, the Matching Supporters did an outreach and asked parents and blessed children, what are the things that would be helpful to you? The most helpful question for you. The number one question that parents wanted answered is, how do I talk to my son or daughter about the matching? How do I bring it up? And guess what the number one question was that our BCs wanted to know? How do I talk to my parents about the matching process? Amazing, huh? Isn't that? and you know, if you think about it, how do you bridge it? How do you bring it up? I mean, that's a very valid question. So here's what my wife and I did with one of our kids. We would say, you know, a conversation, you know, we chat, we're in different cities, he's going to college and we're several hours away. So we communicate, you know, by phone or Skype or whatever. So we talk, you know, every week or a few times a week perhaps. Every now and then, when he was still single, we would say, so Peter, have you thought at all about the matching process? And in the beginning he'd say no. And so then we just talk about school. How was everything? School, work, you know, how are things going in your life and so forth. Don't talk about the matching. So then a little later, 6 months or so, hey Peter, have you thought at all about the matching process at all? We're here for you when you're ready. No, I haven't thought about it. Not interested. Okay, how's work? School, everything going okay? 6 months later, a year and a half, or more later, bring it up again. Have you thought at all about the matching process? Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Get better, we're getting there. Change the topic, don't talk about the matching. We do not want to push our kids. If they don't feel ready, right? We don't want to talk to them about it. If they have questions, that's great, but by asking that simple question, it can open the door for them to say, yeah. And eventually, our son finally said, yeah, I've been thinking about it. So then we changed the topic, we didn't talk about it. Changed the subject, now he's open to it, he's thinking about it. And a few months later, maybe it wasn't quite 6 more months, we would say, so Peter, have you thought at all about the matching process recently? And finally, he said, yeah. So at that point then we could begin communication. So, you know, that's one technique that you might find parents could be helpful, you know, with some of your sons and daughters. Some of you have excellent relationships with the kids. The young people who are here today are obviously thinking about it. Maybe they're not ready yet, but at least, you know, there is an opening. You're thinking about it and educating yourself. So that's good. So that's one thing that can be really helpful. And for young people, it's a similar kind of thing. One thing that came up in the testimony, and this came up with one of our matching supporters, is really frustrated because he's been working with a young lady for several years now, 2 or 3 years, and referred a wonderful young man to her, and she took one really quick look at it and said, no, it's not going to work. But this guy was everything that she had asked for, and she just didn't really take time to pray about it or think about it. And she has a list of things that she wants in a spouse. And one thing I would just like to say is, you know, we have to be a little bit open. None of us are perfect, right? Not any of us are perfect. Maybe true parents are, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if anybody here is, but I can tell you, lots of us are not perfect. And so in the matching process, there might be 80% of what we want in a spouse in a particular person. But that's pretty good, isn't it? Anyway, my point is, try to be open, try to be flexible, try to consider the possibility of, a person being a possible match. So parents and candidates. And remember that a conversation is not a matching. A conversation is getting to know the other person as a brother and sister with the possibility that it might end up being a matching. So a conversation, if there might be maybe a possibility, then try it out. Just, go into the matching discussion with an open heart and an open mind and think, well, maybe it could work. And if it doesn't, well, keep going. Don't give up. So those are some little tips that I hope can be helpful in the process as you prepare for a possible matching. And one of the things that's really important, of course, is the relationship between parents and children. And one of the things that almost invariably, in fact, I've never seen an exception, parents and children come closer together in the matching process. So as the process develops and evolves, the relationship deepens and matures, and a lot of sometimes wounds are healed. So now, the key thing is that the relationship now between parents and children is to find an eternal spouse and hopefully end up in a happy blessing, a happy, loving relationship. So parents want that, children want that, God wants that, everybody wants that, right? So that's the goal. So the parent-child relationship is really key. So here's the presentation that is the heart of the matching process. The heart of the matching process is the relationship between parents and their young adult child. And by the way, young men and women, I sometimes will refer to you as a child or children, but that's not meant to diminish you in any way. I recognize you as young adults. But you are still the children of your parents, right? So that's the context of my use of the word child. So please don't be offended if I call you a child, because it's just because I'm a child too. Anyway, so age has nothing to do with our maturity, but you're young adults, you're here and you're preparing for the matching process. So remember that communication is so important in building and rebuilding a relationship. So the heart of the matching process is the relationship between parents and children. That's the heart of the process. True parents. What is the center of the universe? Nothing is more important or more precious than the relationship between a parent and child. Right? Nothing. When Adam and Eve separated from God, broke away from heaven, they broke his heart. They broke God's heart. They just broke God's heart. And so in our relationship, as we heal our relationships with our parents and with our children, we in part are healing God's broken heart as well. Think about that. We're healing God's broken heart. Wow. So as we improve our relationship between parents and children, we're helping to improve the relationship between God and his children, us. So the heart of the relationship is the relationship between parent and child. And the most important part of that, of course, is that relationship. As parents, our perspective is everything. Perspective. So, parents, what were you like when you were a teenager or young adult? What were you like when you were the age of your son or daughter? Scary question. Anybody relate to that? Dads? Any dad look like that when we were a little younger? Or this guy? That's me. I was 21 years old and I was in the Arctic, 500 miles north of the North Magnetic Pole. We had compasses in those days, so we had circles. Sun never set all the time I was there. I was 21. Anyway, that's another story. This is not me and it's not my wife, but anybody identify with that? So, in the past, we looked a little different from what we are now. We acted a little differently, Mom, Dad. We had different challenges. And one of them was probably the relationship that we had with our parents. So, how was your, just think, I'm not going to confront you, just think about it. How was your relationship with your parents, mom and dad, when you were younger? I don't know if you can see this, but here's a young lady, and her mom is talking away. The young lady is really happy because she's got earplugs. She's listening to her iPad or whatever, iPod or whatever it is she's listening to. And mom is happily blabbing away. But not such an ideal relationship, right? How would you have liked your relationship and communication with your parents to have been? So if you could go back and fix things, what would you change? Well, I can make a long list of things that I would change. I would do things quite differently from what I did. But to have this perspective, if we think about this, where we were is to some degree where our children are right now. So back to the present. What challenges do our teenagers and young adults face today? Well, today's world is very, very different from when we grew up. Today, pornography and free sex and drugs and alcohol, I mean, it's just dominant. You cannot watch the news without hearing about these kinds of things. In our day, it was bad enough, but today it's a lot worse. So as parents, it's important that we understand all our sons and daughters are dealing with things that are a little bit different from when we grew up. And one of the really important things for our sons and daughters to do is to become owners of their faith. So they can't just inherit it from us. Sometimes we figure, yeah, it'd be just nice if they could just accept what I teach them. Why don't they just do that? But God never did that to us, did He? God waited. Waited probably seemed like an eternity. He waited for us to take responsibility. So for our children, it's a similar kind of thing. And that's why we can never push them into the matching process. So how can we help our sons and daughters? There are things that we can do, right, to help them. Hopefully. So one of the things is to change our parenting styles as our sons and daughters grow and mature. So we always want to be these things. We want to be role models. We want to build a relationship with them. We want to build a relationship of trust. We want to be teachers and guides, mentors. We want them to come to us if and when they have problems or challenges. And in order to do that, we have to build a relationship centered on love and based upon trust. So our kids come to us with a problem or something, we don't just panic or judge or hit the roof or yell and scream. We wouldn't do that anyway, would we? Some of us might. Anyway. So the key thing is we really need to evolve as our children grow and mature and develop. We need to evolve our parenting styles. So we always want to be there. In the beginning, when our kids are really, really young, we make the rules because they perhaps don't understand running into the street, they could get run over. Right? I mean, really basic. Don't touch the stove. It's hot. Hot. Oh, what's that? Right? So you make the rule. They may not understand it, but you make the rule and they have to obey. But as they get older, they take more and more responsibility. And it's important for us to be able to trust them, to give them trust so that they can make mistakes and then learn from those mistakes. Age appropriate, right? You know, when our eldest daughter was 12 years old, my wife went to Chongpyeong for a workshop of some kind. She's grimacing now. And I got a call from one of our brothers that somebody needed my help in Eastern Canada. So we lived in the West. So I got on an airplane and I flew out to Eastern Canada, leaving 5 kids, the eldest 12 years old, for all alone. It's pretty stupid. I've never lived it down. My wife called from Korea, and our son answered the phone. And, oh, hi, Mom. Hi. She talked a little bit. Can I talk to Dad? He's not here. Well, where is he? Oh, he's gone to London, Ontario. Actually, I think it was Niagara Falls or something. In fact, I think it was even in, anyway. The point is, give them responsibility, but be wise, okay? Be sure your wife is around, dads, when you give them responsibility. Anyway, sometimes we make mistakes, right? So age-appropriate responsibility. Give them responsibility so that they can make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And of course, us too. You know, it's one thing that's really important is that we take responsibility for mistakes that we've made. Really, really important. And that's how we teach our children. You know, our kids learn more from watching us, from living in our homes than they do in, you know, us teaching them the divine principle, or that's, I believe. I think our kids absorb more from us in the family. Your father said that the school of love is in the family, right? In today's society, we have a breakdown in the family, and thus our society is confused. Confused and messed up because the families are broken down. So our children need to grow up in a loving environment where we give them responsibility, allow them to take responsibility for their mistakes, and we too, as parents, take responsibility for our mistakes. And the matching process is a real opportunity. So if you're like me, you will feel challenged and confronted. It's just very difficult, but this is a great opportunity to take responsibility, to grow as a family, and to grow together, and to build or rebuild the communication, the level of respect, the level of trust, the relationship between parents and children. So if we look at it like that, and we think, well, what do we really want here? We want God to be happy, we want our sons and daughters to be happy, we want our moms and dads to be happy, we want our neighbors, our brothers, we want the world to be happy, happy, happy. So it doesn't just happen. But as we build and rebuild a relationship of trust between parents and children, then we can develop a better relationship in our home. And our families, of course, can come closer through the matching process. One thing that can help families to come together is to make a matching plan together. Read the family matching handbook together. And even if you're in separate towns or cities or countries, you can still read it. Read, 2 or 3 pages, and then communicate by Skype or however you connect and talk about it. So you can connect and you can build a relationship that way. It's important that we get on the same page, and the matching plan worksheet can be really helpful in that regard. The matching plan worksheet really can be a tremendous tool to help in the communication process. So here's a young lady that's really happy, I guess. I don't know, is she happy? She's kind of blissed, she's in her own world. She's maybe thinking about the matching, I don't know. But here's what her mom looks like. Yeah, some of us as parents can identify with that. Mom's just about to tear out that hair. So it's really important in the matching process that we connect with each other as parents and children and get on the same page. So what we suggest is what we could call a soft startup. Soft startup. So you don't sit down and say, okay, let's talk about the matching. We're going to get you blessed. It's not quite the way to do it. Start soft. Start having a conversation and connect and communicate with each other. You can do it in the car. Nice old car, huh? Parked in a cornfield. You can do it after Sunday service, go for a walk together, a cup of coffee. It shouldn't be confrontational. It should be hopefully natural and relaxed, and watch the timing. When hearts are open, that's a good time to chat. Connect with each other. One thing that could be helpful is to have a family meeting. Now, some of us don't maybe like family meetings. When I hear or somebody ever recommended to me that our family have a family meeting, I panicked. I didn't really care much for family meetings, but This is me. Tell me we're going to have a family meeting. That's me. That's how I feel about family meetings. But here's a hint. This helps me. This helped me a lot. Don't call it a family meeting. Oh. Okay. How about dinner together? Oh, I can handle that. Or go to a sporting event. You know, our kids all played soccer, so you know, go to the soccer field and watch the kids. The kids are grateful that mom and dad are there, right? Or watch it on TV if you know if that's what your son and daughter want to do. Go on a camping trip or some kind of event. Some kind of event that the family can enjoy together. And something like camping can be a really great experience, you know, especially for younger kids. Or go on some kind of a tour, you know, around the national parks, something like that. Some kind of event together. For parents, it might be helpful to start with an apology. So we all, I think, as parents, I think I can safely say, most of us have made mistakes of some kind or another in our connection and communication with our sons and daughters. So it's not hard, for me at least, to find something to apologize for. But if you're going to start with an apology, it's really important that you're sincere. Don't just make up something, because our kids especially are smart and sensitive, more than we, in my opinion. And they'll know right away if we're not being sincere, and it'll backfire. So it's just really important. Of course, you want to develop a sincere, beautiful, loving relationship, right? So everything you need to do, or everything you do, you need to be sincere. Very, very important. So a sincere apology can possibly open hearts and begin a conversation that could lead to a deepening relationship and a better communication. So what does good communication look like? Well, here are some suggestions. All ideas are considered. So even if we don't always agree, it's important that we think about it. What's my son trying to tell me? Or my wife, or my husband? Everyone has a chance to talk and to be heard. And this is why, you know, a dinner together can be really, really great, because then, you know, you're eating, everybody's hopefully kind of relaxed, and then, you know, the kids can make comments, and everybody can have hopefully a friendly, loving, respectful conversation. So that can be really helpful. What we say here will stay here, and everybody's appreciated. So sometimes, you know, our kids, mom and dad, they'll share something that we think is just really cute, and we can't wait to tell the neighbor about it. But that might not be the best approach, because it might be something that our son or daughter shared, expecting that we would keep it confidential. So be really sensitive. Everything we say here will stay here. It's a family thing, and it's really, really important that we understand that. Basic communication skills can be really handy, very convenient, so talk nicely, talk respectfully, and listen really carefully. So these communication skills can be learned, and it's really important that we do our best to learn to listen and to learn to share respectfully, to talk respectfully. When we talk, we want our sons and daughters to listen carefully and to really understand what we're trying to say, right? Of course, that's why we're talking to them. And of course, they want exactly the same thing. So when our sons and daughters share with us, mom and dad, they want us to hear what they're saying, not just listen and nod our head and, you know, have no idea what they're talking about. They really want us to understand. Same as you. So all of us, when we share, when we communicate, that's what we want, of course. And sometimes it takes more than love to build a relationship. Sometimes we have to learn to listen. And this is why point number 2 in my list of the 3 things to remember at the end of the day today is listening, learning to listen. It's a learned skill, and it's really, really important that we learn how to do that. And in the matching process, it's a good chance to learn and to practice it. So good listening requires paying attention. You know, if your wife is talking to you and you're looking out the window at the neighbor cutting the grass or whatever's going on outside, you may not be listening so carefully, right? So it's just really important that we take the time and make the effort to sincerely listen to what the other person is sharing with us. And it does take practice. It's a learned skill. Practice makes perfect, or at least you can improve it by practicing. There's a brother called Bento Leal that some of you know, who's written a book, thank God. It's a good book, it's a great book, and I do recommend it. When Crescencia Degodi took over the directorship of the Blessing and Family Ministry here in America, one of the things that she initiated was marriage enrichment webinars. So for several years, we called upon a number of people who had some counseling experience and so forth to share with us. And the very first person, I think the very first person was Bento Leal. He's one of our brothers in the Bay Area, and he's a certified marriage and relationship educator. You can't read that, can you? Anyway, he is a certified educator and relationship coach. And he's written a book called 5 Keys to Effective Communication. The first webinar he did was called Empathic Listening, a communication skill. And empathic listening is paying attention to another person with compassion, feeling, insight, trying to understand from their point of view what they're trying to communicate. Empathic listening. So a little later he did a second webinar called Empathic Speaking. And then he did another one called Empathic Awareness. And I think there are 1 or 2 more on there. I'll show you later where to find these webinars, and I do recommend listening to them. He also has written a book called 4 Essential Keys to Effective Communication. This is a tremendous book, has some really tremendous tips there to help to learn how to become a good listener. So in the matching process, we have to listen to our spouse, of course. We have to listen to our sons and daughters, but not just in the matching process and not just within our family, but effective listening can be a tremendous tool in everything we do. Right? So in our work, in school, in every interaction with other people, if we can become a good listener, then that's a skill that not everybody is able to claim. So it's really, can be really, really helpful. And here are a couple more tips on really listening. Eye contact, looking at the person when you're talking and sharing with them. Watch your body language, offer listening responses, be in the same room. So if you're communicating with somebody down the hall, it may not be the best for communicating effectively. And turn off the cell phones, turn off the tablets. Put down the newspaper. Anybody know what a newspaper is? Do we read newspapers anymore? You do? Benji remembers? Yeah, so put down your book or your newspaper, or turn off the television, turn the stove off, whatever you're doing, stop. Stop and listen. Connect with whoever is trying to share with you. Good listening requires practice, asking questions, and paraphrasing what the other person is trying to say to you. So practice, asking questions. What you're saying is, so when someone is explaining something to you, so what you're saying is, and then you express to them very short, few words, what you believe they are trying to say, trying to understand from their point of view, from their perspective, what it is they're talking about. Let me see if I have this right. Is that what you mean? Is there more? Is there more that you want to tell me? So these are skills that can really help us as we communicate and connect with each other. Learning to listen. Some of us have a hard time with this one. Try not to ask dumb questions. Well, why did you do that? That's dumb. Not conducive to opening a person's heart and really genuinely listening and trying to understand where they're coming from. So try not to ask questions of that. Really try to understand what it is they are trying to say, not thinking about what you're going to respond not thinking about your point of view, if possible. Think about where they are coming from. What is it that they are feeling, and what are they trying to communicate to you? So in the communication process, and in relationship building, there are some other common roadblocks. Giving orders or commands. Moms and dads, some of us are good at this. Yeah. Attacking or making threats. I'm sure none of us can have it. But here's one that we're really good at. Preaching or lecturing. Right? True Father said, you got to do this. Well, the divine principle says, right? Sometimes we're really good at that. And that's not necessarily conducive to a good conversation. So I recommend that you avoid preaching and lecturing. And one of the things that men are really good at, especially, is providing all the solutions. Well, just do this, dear. Sometimes our wives just need to talk about what they're feeling. They just need to express themselves. And for some of us husbands, it takes a long time to learn that, and even longer to actually be good at it. So some of us are a work in progress. Thank you, dear, for being patient with me. Instead, when you're communicating with somebody, try to keep it really simple. So they're sharing with you. Your response to them, you're the listener, right? Your response to them should be really simple. Simple and short, and not quoting somebody else, but right from your heart, sincerely trying to understand where they're coming from. So be yourself and seize the moment. Especially if your son or daughter is coming to you to talk about something. Doesn't matter what it is, be there for them. Really, really an important point. So in the matching process, there are some things that can help us as we move forward and as we prepare. And here are some tools for parents. The BFM website, marriage enrichment webinars, family matching videos. We have quite a few family matching videos, I think 20 or 18 or something like that, on different parts of the matching process, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And sometimes it can help to talk to a matching supporter. So as I said, for families, a matching supporter is not required, but sometimes they can be really, really helpful. So consider that. Small Steps to Bigger Love by Debbie Gullery. Some of you may be familiar with this book. It can really be helpful. Points and tips to help to mend relationships and to grow your heart and to build a better relationship. I mentioned the 4 essential keys to effective communication. Those 2 books can be purchased on Amazon, and they're $10 or $15. I think Debbie's book is $8 or $9, something like that. And real love in dating, and real love in marriage. Dr. Gregory Baer, has written several books based on what he calls real love. He defines real love the same way we define true love. So these are really good reference books. There are a lot of practical tips in these books, in his books, that can help us to learn practically what to look for in a spouse, what to look for in ourselves, how practically we can be better people and avoid some of the mistakes that others have made. So those are really, really helpful books that I do recommend. And the love languages. How many people know their spouse's love language? Some of you, good. Really important. Google 5 love languages. And I really highly recommend that you find out your spouse's love language, but also, if possible, your children's love language. How do they receive love? Because each of us receives love in a different way. So if we understand how our partner, our child, our parent receives love, then we're more able to offer the love in the way that they can most readily receive it. So 5 love languages. Help our sons and daughters to be ready for the matching process. Consider learning together. Read the matching handbook, I mentioned that. Work on the family matching plan. Complete a matching profile. So young men and women sometimes will come to me and they'll say, well, how do I know if I'm ready for the matching? There's not a list of check boxes that you can check off and say, check, 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 I've done that, okay, I guess I'm ready. It's not that easy, is it? Doesn't quite work that way. But there are some techniques, some things that I recommend that can be helpful to evaluate where you're at. One of them is completing a profile. And on Matchbook, you can complete the profile. There are 10 questions there. And you can put the profile on hold, so nobody can see it except you. And then when you're ready to release it, then you can make it available. But by answering those 10 questions, it can help you evaluate where you're at in the matching process. Another thing that can be helpful is the matching plan worksheet that we talked about earlier. And you have a copy in your printout there, in your booklet. So the matching plan worksheet, that can also help to stimulate you to think about how ready are you? Have you thought about all of those topics and all of those things in preparation for the matching process? And another one is to apply on the BFM website as a matching candidate. So complete the blessing interview, the medical tests, the blessing workshop. Those items can help you evaluate where you are at in the matching process. And parents often ask the same question: how do I know if my kids are ready? I don't know. I guess you better ask them. So there are some ways like that can help. And if you as a family are not sure, then sit down and read the matching handbook together and discuss it. And then you can be open to receiving what your son and daughter are trying to share with you, and help them to understand where they are at in the matching process. So, of course we're constantly growing, trying to find the best way to grow, to become better people. Our young people need to own their faith. I've mentioned this several times, and it's just really is important that they understand where they're at, what they're going to accept, and what they just can't accept in our movement, whether it's in the church or even in the divine principle. So spiritual maturity is important, and also career goals. Where are they in their life in their external life, in their studies, in their career path? So those are important evaluations to understand and consider and contemplate as we go into the matching process and in preparation for it. Matching is the ultimate team effort. The ultimate team effort. And it could be just your family on the team, or you could involve others, like we mentioned earlier, a matching supporter, a pastor, a good friend. Those siblings, they could be part of the matching team as well as possible. And one thing always to remember, we're on the same team. Same team. And we all want the same thing. Right? So the three important points from today: unity is the most important condition. Through unity, God can be there. God can be present. So we really want God to be part of the process. So unity and creating some condition of unity is really important. Listening, and it's a learned skill, so we can practice that one, that's good. And also, we can never give up, especially parents. Our sons and daughters, maybe they'll choose to kind of, hopefully not quit. Maybe they'll choose to take a bit of a break, but mom and dad, we have to be there. We really have to be there for them. We never ever give up. It's really important. So here are some activities that I recommend families, especially parents, go on a date together, do some volunteer work, go to church together, ideally as a family, go to a movie, go bowling. These are activities that can help to build a relationship, to help to rebuild a relationship if it's been fractured or damaged. So maybe some of those things appeal to you, maybe some don't. Double dating is great, if you're having a difficult time. And all we want, our ultimate goal, is happy blessings. So there's a happy blessing. It looks like lots of balloons, lots of excitement. This is kind of what it looks like in Korea these days. So are there any questions? This is just a quick overview of parent-child relationship and the importance of building and rebuilding a relationship between parents and children. It's really, really important. It's very integral to the matching process. Okay, no questions, thank you very much. Anything at all? Any questions? We've talked about it all today? Okay, so then let's take a short break. 10 minutes, is that enough? And then we'll come back and we'll look at the matching websites and also the BFM website. So for those of you who are not ready to get onto or are not maybe interested in the matching websites, stay for the first few minutes so that we can look at the BFM website. And I'll show you where to sign up for the newsletter and all that stuff. I'll show you where to find the matching plan worksheet. Show you where to find the marriage enrichment videos, all of those things that can be really helpful in the process as you prepare for the matching. And then later on, if you don't want to stay for the introduction to the matching websites, then you can leave anytime. Actually, you can leave anytime you want, right? So in 10 minutes, maybe 5 to 4, is that okay? Then we'll reconvene again and we'll look